Merci, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, Monsieur le Ministre des Affaires étrangères. Je vous remercie cette invitation, comme je remercie le roi, Sa Majesté, pour son hospitalité ici au Maroc. Je suivrai le président Kaberuka avec une petite introduction en français et après je parlerai en anglais, si vous permettez. L'accent va différer un peu. We have spoken today of industrial revolutions, transitions in economy and technology and demography, and I would like to speak just for a few minutes about the organizational revolution, because had we gathered here to discuss this subject 25 years ago or 50 years ago, I think that we would have approached these problems by attempting to establish a new Atlantic organization. This is a new century, and we are 2/3 of a century after the founding of the United Nations. The United Nations, which was, in a sense, the reflection of an era in which great organizations such as General Motors were the very forefront of modernity and industrial organization, and so we created an organization like them. Of course, we find that today General Motors is essentially bankrupt, and perhaps this is not a model to follow. We see in the United Nations tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of employees housed in hundreds and hundreds of offices around the world. Now, I don't say this to criticize the organization, but to suggest that this is not the model to follow in dealing with the cooperation in the Atlantic Basin. The scale is too massive. The overhead costs are not something we wish to recreate. The very strength of an organization like the United Nations, broad membership or universal membership, a vast scope of activities, a very large staff. These very strengths are also the Achilles heels of these organizations, for they can limit flexibility, and sometimes the discord among members prevents them from acting at all. At the other end of the spectrum, we find organizations like the G7 or G8, by comparison quite small, but which until recently have had great importance in the governance of world affairs. Yet that model too may be outmoded. Only this year we may have seen the replacement of the G8 by the G20. Still small, though 3 times as large, far more representative of the entire world, in fact representing 90% of the world's GDP. It is quite possible that the G8 is the past, the G20 the future. Now, the G20 is not really an organization at all. One could say it's just a meeting. There's not really a secretariat. There's no building. There are no employees with pensions and vacations. It's just a meeting. Yet, of course, a meeting of the heads of government of such countries, well prepared, can make important decisions about international cooperation. So I suggest that this is more the model we need for the Atlantic opening. Consider for a moment the Proliferation Security Initiative, the PSI. It has been said that it isn't an organization at all. It is an activity. It is a group of nations committed to working together to prevent the proliferation of dangerous weapons, chemical, biological, nuclear, and 90 nations have joined. It's now 6 years old. It brings together diplomacy, law enforcement, military tools, and personnel to monitor global shipping, and it uses existing authorities to intercept and seize illegal cargo. Every action is voluntary. It is a unique model of multilateral cooperation that does not work through a bureaucracy. It works because there is no bureaucracy. There is no secretariat. There is no headquarters. There are no regularly scheduled meetings. No single party can prevent the other parties from acting. It is speedy and flexible. There's no formal treaty. There are no formal obligations. It has been described as a set of partnerships that establish a basis for cooperation, an open and agile architecture, and it works. Thus, it may provide a better model for successful multilateral activity in the future, as it transcends previous models and it exceeds them in efficacy and efficiency. And we can apply this model to many problems, including many problems in the Atlantic Basin. Just as an example, ministers of justice can meet regularly to coordinate their activities. Those ministers who are working to combat drug trafficking and drug abuse, those dealing with population movements, legal and illegal. And all of these meetings can agree on joint activities so that the meetings are not an exchange of words, they are the basis for action. Now, I am not suggesting that existing institutions are not of great importance. I'm not suggesting that these great institutions, such as the United Nations or the African Bank, will wither away. They serve irreplaceable functions. They are no more likely to wither away than the states which founded them. But we do not expect more such great institutions to be created. Better the close but unstructured coordination from the major economies and major states than new organizations. Better that national officials cooperate and coordinate based on mutual interests than new organizations that attempt to regulate across borders that may, in the end, put a straitjacket on economic and financial activities that must necessarily vary from country to country. So when we look at the Atlantic space, it seems to me that this new approach, a 21st century approach, is more apt. Common values are already widely shared in the Atlantic space. There is considerable common activity here. What is needed is flexible cooperation in the economic, security, and social areas, and this will best be achieved in flexible forms of association among the relevant officials. Perhaps one way to put it is that we need structure, but we do not need new structures. That is, new organizations and bureaucracies will not help. The way forward is organized cooperation. Thank you.